Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining today's webinar organized by Irish Pakistani Professionals Association. The topic of today's webinar that we have chosen is AI, artificial intelligence, and we are also honoring our women in collaboration with the IPPA, and the occasion is International Women's Day 2021. So, just to give you a little bit of idea about IPPA, we have our founding member of Irish Pakistani Professionals Association, Dr. Khalid Sarwar Khan, with us. He will give you a brief intro of what IPPA is and what we do before we go to the actual webinar. So Dr. Khalid, over to you. You're on mute, Dr. Khalid.
Hi, everybody. I'll just share my screen. Okay. Okay, can everybody see this?
Yes, that's fine, yeah.
Okay, hi. So this Irish Pakistani Professional Association is an organization of professionals. It includes doctors, engineer, IT people, and all professionals from different background of Pakistani origin. The main vision is to guide and support the new generation. We are a group of professionals from different specialties, and we believe in collective efforts to promote integration in our society without compromising on cultural values, beliefs, and to make Ireland a country where people can live with peace, harmony, and respect. These are the few important aims which we are following from the day one. The highlight the achievement of Pakistani professionals and their contribution to the society, to provide professional support and career guidance to the young generation in Ireland, to help integrate Pakistani community with Irish communities and also with other communities, to support community welfare activities. As I mentioned, there are different professionals, but 85% of its members are doctors, and remaining are different professionals like ICT people who are organizing the event and always a backbone for all our events, and accountants, engineers, solicitors, business manager, journalists, and you name it. And it's to ease the operation of organization. We divided into IPPA-Med with doctors and other health-related professionals, and IPPA-Tech with ICT engineers and other professionals. The main events and activities I'll share with you. We started this journey in March 2019, although the concept was started in September 2018, but the formal inauguration was done on 23rd March 2019, which is an Independence Day for Pakistan. And it was an important event, and we got support from one of our sister organization, UPNE from UK, and they joined, and it was very good event for all families, friends, and everybody enjoyed the Irish culture as well. Then we just, for the members, and this is the crowd we are focusing our new generation. So we just get together for the members of the IPPA, and it was one of the evening we can dream of at present, but it's July 2019, the beginning. And then we organize a community event for will and inheritance, and we want to give both aspects of Islamic will and inheritance and the Irish law, and we try to find out the ways in between how it can be implemented. It was very well taken, and it was well attended. We organized a HPPA-Tech, which is, if people know, it's an exam which is important to get admission in medical colleges in Ireland, and it's one of the key factors to get admission or not. And IPPA members, young members, who are students in Royal College of Surgeons in Ireland, UCD, and Trinity College, they conducted this event, and it was for all people, including Irish community and all other communities, and it was very well appreciated and helped the students a lot. And we got a very positive feedback. Then the COVID was there, and all were involved, and we diverted our activities to help our community, Pakistani community in particular, and Irish community in large. And we put some helplines for accounts, for legal matters, and for doctors to help. And we also provide some rations in Pakistan when was needed. And we also supported by providing PPEs in different cities, especially this is a picture of late Professor Pasha, who himself was unfortunately passed away in COVID, and he distributed this in the University Hospital Multan for us. This is the IPPA-Tech event, which Khalid Abbas and other IPA ICT people has organized. It was first of its kind with the collaboration of Pakistan Embassy, and it was very successful, and it led the different era in Ireland. And after that, many IT events and new focusing on the new generation were done by IPA and some other organizations. In August, there was big demand for repeating the hatchpad, and that time the COVID. So the same team, and plus the people who were attending that time, they got good scores and admission in medical college. They participated, and they did another webinar online. And this is the feedback. This reflects how successful it was, and again attended by everybody. Sorry, excuse me. Can you turn off the mics, please? Okay, thanks. So then we did a community with an Irish organization on cyberbullying. And this was also helped the young people, the students and the families to understand this special, the laws and the different aspects of cyberbullying. This event was very well weighted, CV writing and interview skills, focusing on the international doctors, because this is one of the area where most of the doctors, foreign doctors, feel they need support. And this was reflected in our our survey we did, and they want help in this area. And it was helped by a lot of professors from Ireland and Pakistani professionals as well, doctors who are at higher positions and helping the health system here. And it was also very well appreciated, and the feedback was excellent and helped the doctors. The COVID itself was making everybody very sad, and we realized there's need for some more different event, and we organized a more like a literature event for people in Urdu language, and people from Germany, from UK, from UAE, and different parts of the world. They joined, and everybody enjoyed that evening. This is a seminar which was organized by Jasuna in USA, and I was honored to be participating in that. And the nine countries representative talked about the system of health and training, and it was a very well organized event and full of information how you can progress in different countries for new graduates. We did a research and medical event recently. Professor Bernard Kelly was the one who gave talk. He's one of the very important advisor for these matters, and it was excellent event for the young doctors, and they were all benefited from this. Recently, we did communication skills in medicine, and in which the Professor Gillen and President of Medical Council Ireland, Rita Doyle, and MPS was on board. And it was also a very important aspect which doctors coming from abroad has to know and improve their skills, and it helps to progress in the career and to reduce any complaints against them. So we are doing this event today, and in future we are thinking to repeat will inheritance practical aspect and communication skill part 2 on different aspects, because there are many aspects of communication skills in medicine, and hopefully we'll do it soon. I think I'll finish here. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Dr. Khalid, for giving us introduction about IPPA and what we do. So now coming to our main event, I see people are still joining, and just to give you a little intro, I'm your host today, and my name is Khalid Abbas. I myself work in eBay as a senior incident response engineer. We have Syed Asif who with us, our co-host, will be looking after IT side of the things, and he works in Citrix. So the thing that everybody is curious to know, artificial intelligence. So what is artificial intelligence? Basically, it enables computers, machines to mimic the perception, learning, problem solving, and decision-making capabilities of the human mind. To give you further information about this popular topic, we have Dr. Begum Genc. She is from Turkey, and she's a postdoctoral researcher working as part of Confirm Center hosted by the School of Computer Science and IT at University College Cork. She also serves as Cork ambassador as well as the events lead for women in AI. She completed her BS in computer engineering in Izmir University of Economics, ranking first in the department. She is also holding an MSc in computer engineering from Bilkent University. The vast amount of her research experience thus far is on automated reasoning, discrete optimization, constraint, satisfaction problems, and AI ethics. She has an enthusiasm for contributing to shaping the future of AI while holding concerns on its trustworthiness. She is an active member of many nonprofit communities, speaker at various events addressing AI and gender gap, board member for innovation fund reviews, and reviewer to top conferences in her field. Over to you, Dr. Begum.
Thank you very much, Khalid, for the introduction. And also thank you for inviting me today for this beautiful event. Should I go ahead with my presentation?
Sure, please. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So can you first let me know if you see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So as Khalid has mentioned a while ago, I am a postdoctoral researcher working in University College Cork, and my name is Begum. I know that many of you are familiar with the name Begum as Pakistani people. It's a very common female name in Turkey. So I'm also the ambassador at Women in AI. By the way, I'm sometimes looking at this direction, but please excuse me, I have another screen there where my presentation is, so I'm not looking away from you. So first, I want to give you a brief introduction of who Women in AI is and what we are doing in Ireland. So this is to give you an idea about our activities and how we can help us or how we can support you throughout your journey. So what you see here in the slide is the Women in AI Ireland core team. So we are a non-profit organization, a global-wide organization, and we are some females from all across Ireland working on all different branches of AI community to support the AI community here in Ireland. And well, our team is more than this. So our dynamic team of volunteers actually consists of many more men and women that are helping us to perform in Ireland. And today we count more than 5,000 members in more than 100 countries. And when we look at our activities, mainly in Ireland, we are a community-driven organization, and all our events are for free. So we are organizing free talks and panels by inviting some really esteemed speakers in the field, especially from Ireland, to give them more visibility and to educate our community. And we call such events as Y Talks. And we also have another pathway that we are offering as part of Women in AI Ireland, which is the Why Learn part, which focuses on educating people. So one of the programs that we are really proud of, and I think this could be interesting to you, is that we are collaborating with Technology Ireland ICT SkillNet for providing a foundation certificate in artificial intelligence. So if you complete this certificate program, at the end of it, what you might have is a certificate that is academically recognized by TU Dublin. And this is a really good program. And if you have such thing in mind, I encourage you to take this, to look at this. And we are offering this program twice a year usually. And also we are offering some AI and data practice groups. So what happens in this is that almost every month we launch a number of self-paced project groups. And in each project group, we have 3 to 4 members, and there's a lead at the project. And the members are selecting a project that they want to solve, they want to work on, and they work for it throughout the month. And by the end of it, when they finish their projects, we are also presenting the projects in a showcase format for the community. And we also have a social media campaign, which we call Be Amazing campaign. And our goal in this campaign is to give some visibility to women by highlighting their technical competence and talent. So what we want to do in Women in AI Ireland in general is to reduce the gender gap in AI, because this is a serious problem, unfortunately. The results, the surveys show that only about 20% of the people working in AI are actually women. Or if you're looking at some leading machine learning researchers, for instance, this is down to 15%. This is a very critical number, and Women in AI is trying to change this. So if you're interested in joining us, becoming a member or anything, I really suggest you to take a look at our website, and you can easily just join our community and support our activities. And going back to our actual goal for the day. So we want to talk about artificial intelligence. And the main question is, what is artificial intelligence? Unfortunately, there's not a single definition that is being accepted. Like, everybody is coming up with their own definitions for this, but the general accepted criteria is that artificial intelligence is a branch of computer science, and it focuses on developing intelligent or smart machines such that the machine somehow mimics the human behavior. So what do we do as humans? We try to reason, we try to learn, and by learning, we take new actions, and we make some sorts of decisions, and if there's a problem, we try to solve the problem. So we want a computer, a machine, to be able to do the same reasoning and problem solving and learning. And artificial intelligence, even though we are hearing this term in the recent years, well, this is not a new thing. So there's years of hard work put into artificial intelligence. It started, researchers have started working on it since 1950s. And what they were doing was more to focus on the reasoning parts of the things. And then by time, as the technology has developed, and as people are now able to store more and more data, then everything has shifted into a more data-based method. So we started hearing a lot about machine learning and deep learning, which are looking at some sort of data, or data, as some people call. So by looking at this data, they want to extract some sort of knowledge, some information from this data, and then use it for making future predictions, or I don't know, some other things. So people are now actively working on it. And when we look at the branches of artificial intelligence, it is not only about machine learning. Machine learning is just one of the components in AI. So what we see here is that there's machine learning, natural language processing. So for instance, we are talking about Google Translate. When you go on Google Translate, you write something, it parses what you have written, and then it translates it into another language. Or there's the speech recognition. For instance, you use your Siri, Alexa, and those sorts of voice command platforms, and then it recognizes first what you have said. Even when you have an accent, it is able to learn your accent. And then let's say you can even tell Siri to send a message to someone by just speech. You know, it then what it does is to turn the speech into text. And then there are other things like robotic and vision and all those sorts of things. And there's also planning, scheduling, and optimization, which is actually the area that I am working on. So this is not too much about taking huge data and putting it into something else, but it's more related to reasoning and problem solving and decision making. So I will talk about what I mean throughout this. I'm aware that in this community, there are a lot of doctors. So I'm hoping that with this slide, I can maybe give you an insight of how AI is used in healthcare, or how it can be used in healthcare. So there's this triage option, especially with COVID now. This is becoming more and more popular. It was always there, but it's just even more important now. So AI can be used to reduce the triage time. So what it means is that you can use your phone and you can check in through your application on your phone or on your web, or maybe at the entrance of the hospital by using a computer. You can just write in your symptoms, and then the application can then tell you, or can tell the doctors, if you need emergent care, for instance, or urgent care. So when you went to an emergency room, you tell them, for instance, I have headache, I have this, I have that, and then the computer assesses what is going on. And if you're urgent, then it takes you first. So this is used to reduce the triage, or to speed up the triage. And thinking about COVID, you can now do this triage from your house. So which means that the interaction to the doctor is kept to a minimum. So again, everything is faster. Or another application area, which we are also working on, is called nurse scheduling. So this is also called the nurse rostering. So in this case, what happens is that the hospital or whoever is working in the hospital as the admin is saying, look, we have these constraints, such as if a nurse was working at a night shift, then ideally we don't want the nurse to be working on the following morning because we need the nurse to take some rest. Or maybe let's say a specific nurse, let's call it as, I don't know, Ali. Then Ali is collecting his kids from the school on Mondays at 4 p.m., for instance. Then what you want to do in this scheduling is that you don't want to assign any jobs to Ali on Monday afternoons because he can't be in the same place at the same time. So normally the admins are spending weeks or months or years to come up with something nice, a nice schedule. But with the help of computers, we can come up with really, really good schedules in probably under 1 day and maybe even 1 hour. So it just depends on the constraints, but this is very useful and helpful in the hospitals. And similarly, we can reduce the waiting list at the hospitals by taking into account such things. So we can prioritize some, or we can look at the previous data and change the time slots durations in the waiting list in the hospitals. So this is actually a project that has been addressed by my lab in Insight Center. So they were looking at how to reduce the waiting lists in Irish healthcare system, and we see that this can be substantially reduced. So these are all practical examples. Or there's the famous X-ray screening. If there's an X-ray, then the AI can tell you, hey, look, there's an anomaly here. If you haven't noticed it yet, please take a look into it, because that may actually mean something. So that may actually mean like you have cancer or something, you know? So these types of things are used for helping the doctors. And similarly, EEG analysis, this one is used a lot in psychology. So you wear a cap, and then the cap is just looking at the brain signals, the EEG signals, it's collecting them. And then by using this time series data that you see here, then we analyze this data, and then we can actually come up with things like, oh, for this person with let's say 90% accuracy, we think that this person is happy at the moment, or this person may be suffering from, let's say, Alzheimer. So these types of predictions could be done by using EEG analysis. Or it can be used to guess your tiredness, especially for drivers. This is an important thing. Imagine that you're a bus driver and driving for hours, and you're wearing an EEG hat, then actually your application may tell you, look, you're tired. It's very likely that you're going to fall asleep in a while. So why not take a break? You know, that type of analysis. And now again, with the COVID, these chatbots are very popular. What happens in the chatbots is that there's an application and it has a specific scenario going behind. So usually this is done by using cognitive behavioral therapy, if I'm not saying it wrong. So there's a script in the chatbot, and people are logging in and are saying like, hi, I'm not feeling well today. And then the chatbot is responding, what is going on, what's the problem? And then you explain your problem, and then it understands your text, it understands your problem, and then goes to the specific case and solves or makes you a suggestion for your therapy. So chatbots are also effectively used. But there's one main thing that we need to be careful about such things. As I mentioned in some of them, some of these techniques, they're very, very related to prediction. And what is really important is the accuracy of the prediction. Unfortunately, as far as I know, in none of these predictions, we achieve 100% accuracy. So when you're using X-ray screening, for instance, we are not able to tell yet, there's 100% I'm sure that this person is suffering from X illness. So we can't say it yet. So what we need is that we need the humans, the doctors, the experts, to take this feedback from these kinds of applications and then judge it, and then use it for giving or making better suggestions or identification of the patient status. And also we need the explanation part. You can't just tell someone that, oh, you're sick, but the patient will ask you, why am I sick? So this is a challenge that AI is trying to tackle at the moment. By using AI and machine learning such techniques, we are able to make predictions with high accuracy, but not 100% accuracy. And in most of the cases, we are lacking the explanation. So in healthcare, this has to be really, really taken into account when using it as a helping system. Now, skipping the hospital part, I want to talk about recommendations a little bit. So in recommender systems, as you know, like you're probably familiar with those different platforms. I've listed here 6 platforms that you're probably using in your daily life very frequently. And all these systems are making you some sort of recommendation. So now I want you to please type in chat, if you can, the recommender systems, the ones that you're familiar with on this slide. So for instance, if you're a Netflix user and a Spotify user, please go in chat and type 1 and 2. I just want to have an idea about what type of systems you're familiar with. This is not going to be used elsewhere. So if you're feeling comfortable, please go ahead and type in the chat. And while I'm waiting for your answers, I'm gonna give you some idea. And thank you for the answers. I see some of the answers here that are coming privately. So Netflix is giving you some movie recommendations. Spotify is making you some music recommendations for you to listen next. TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, they're about video recommendations, and Instagram is also giving you some picture recommendations. And Amazon is saying that I think you want to buy this one next. And when I look at here to your answers, I see that Netflix is commonly used and Spotify as well, and YouTube. So all these platforms, they are looking at your previous data, and then they're telling you based on your previous data, previous whatever that you have done, the actions, I think what you want to see is the next step. So this is all that they're doing. Oops. So in these recommender types, there's a problem about falling into the same filter bubbles. And I don't want to go into too much detail of this example because I'm mindful of the time, but I want to give you an idea. So when you are looking at one specific item, then what happened, for instance, on TikTok, if you're following a person, then your recommendations, this is just based on an observation, your next 3 friend recommendations may be the people or the accounts that have a similar profile picture. So by similar, I mean the appearance-based similarity. So if you're interested in this, I suggest you to go on Twitter and look for this user, Mark Fadul. There's a really interesting use case here that he's mentioning. And on another thing now, so talking about in recommender systems in general, and that example that we are talking about a similarity, an appearance-based similarity. If we take into account the case of Netflix, on Netflix, probably you are familiar with this, when you watch a movie, then you get recommended other movies. And your other recommendations, sometimes they don't make sense at all. So in this case, for instance, you have watched this child-related movie, and then you're recommended another movie in whose cover looks similar. So there's again something like a character, but it's a completely different content. So when you're looking at the recommender systems, there's more things that you need to take into account. It is not only appearance-based similarity, but you're looking at other metadata that we call. So things like content, or I don't know, the color of it, the year of it. So depending in the context, you have so many other features. And what a learning algorithm does is that it goes back and looks at everything that you have watched or bought so far, and then looks into its data, the metadata, the supporting data, and then it gives you a prediction, an item to recommend next. Sometimes it's not good, sometimes it's good. And in the case that it's not good, it's usually because you may have a cold start problem. What this means is that maybe you haven't given the system enough data yet. So let's say this is a Spotify example, for instance. In the Spotify, if I haven't listened to any other songs so far, then the system doesn't know my preferences. Or if I have listened to only a couple of songs, then still the system doesn't really know about me. It hasn't learned me yet. So you may end up with stupid recommendations. This is one problem of the recommenders. You need to explain yourself well to the system, or obviously from the other side, the system really needs to be able to learn you well. And another thing is that, again, talking about the Spotify case, for instance, you may have sub-profiles. So people that are working in this field, they are trying to present you the information based on your sub-profiles. So maybe I'm listening to music and I'm listening to the pop genre, or I'm listening to some dance music, or I'm listening to some relaxing music. And on a normal day, on a regular list, if all these recommendations appear on the same list, I will probably think that this is a very bad list because it's just different songs, different types, all in the same one. So what people do, they try to identify your sub-profiles so that they can recommend the similar items in the similar categories. So if you're using your account, if you're sharing your account with your child or with your mother or with your partner, then it's very likely that in one or more of these sub-profiles or these categories, you will have one person's taste or the other one's taste, and it goes on like this. So we talked about the artificial intelligence, the recommenders, and healthcare system, and we talked about learning a lot. And I will now show you a brief demonstration of one of the learning methods, which is called reinforcement learning. I really like this one. I think you will like this example a lot. It's a very nice one. So in reinforcement learning, we are looking at learning like a toddler. So what it means is that, you know, the toddlers, they try to walk, they get up, they fall, they learn from it, and then they get stronger, and then they try to learn again. So there's a feedback mechanism. If you do something good, you get rewarded in a positive way. And if you do something that takes you away from your goal, for instance, like falling, then you are negatively impacted or rewarded or penalized. So this is how this reinforcement learning mechanism works. And this is a really good example. OpenAI researchers come together and then they say that, can we recreate the hide and seek game? Probably you are familiar with the game. There are two seekers, two hiders, and the goal is that the seekers are trying to find the hiders, and hiders are trying not to be seen. So they initiate this experiment. Everyone can move. And at first they realize that these agents are just walking around randomly. They don't really do anything. But then they realize, the seekers are realizing that, oh, look, actually, when we see the hiders, we get a positive impact. So if we go and chase them, it's more likely that we will see them. So they learn how to chase. But then the hiders also get more smart. They realize that the seekers are coming through the doors. So they realize the objects that are in the scene, and they use those objects, the boxes, to block the doors so that the seekers can't find them. Then the seekers realize that, oh, well, when the doors are blocked, what are we going to do? They realize the ramp, they take the ramp, and they climb over the walls to be able to see these agents, the hiders, and they get some sort of positive feedback by doing it, right? So they are positively rewarded, so they learn this action. But then the hiders are realizing that, well, the ramp is the problem. Now we learned that. So what they're trying to do is that at the beginning of the game, of the experiment, they first go for the ramp, they take the ramp, hide it in the room, and then block the doors so that the seekers do not have access to it anymore. And at the end of the experiment, the hiders are getting even more intelligent as the time goes on. And you must have realized that at the beginning of the experiment, the seekers are delayed a little bit to give the hiders some time to hide. So if you reduce that delayed time, if you reduce the time at the beginning, then obviously the hiders will not have enough time to hide. But now the hiders are also learning this, and then they start coordinating and passing the boxes to each other, and they realize that this is actually making them faster. So they adapt to this situation as well. So this is just a fascinating example, I think, about how reinforcement learning is working. So this is what I wanted to share with you today. And thank you very much for listening to the presentation. And as I mentioned before as well, we are Women in AI Ireland, working in Ireland as a community. And I will be delighted if you're interested in joining us. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Begum, for such a nice and entertaining at the end as well, the presentation. We learned a lot about AI today.
Oh, lovely.
Thanks very much. Our second speaker today is Dr. Arjumand Younus. Dr. Arjumand is currently working as a postdoctoral researcher at Consus in UCD, University College Dublin, for a massive government-funded project on data-driven agriculture for Ireland. Before that, she was part of the Recommender Systems group at Insight Center for Data Analytics in University College Dublin. She's also the co-founder of Dublin chapter of Women in Machine Learning and Data Science, and is also actively involved with the Python Ireland community. She has a passion for projects belonging to the theme of data science for social good. She is recipient of Google Women Tech Makers Scholarship for Europe, Middle East, and Africa region. I must say we really feel proud, especially proud Pakistanis when we see things like that. She completed her PhD in computer science in 2015, jointly from National University of Ireland, Galway, and University of Milano, Bicocca, Italy, and her master's in computer science from KIST, South Korea. Over to you, Dr. Arjumand.
Yeah, thank you, Khalid Bhai, for the very nice introduction. Can you all hear me?
Maybe a little bit louder if you can try.
Yeah, so as you all know, the title of my talk is Kickstart an AI Career. And as Dr. Khalid already told, that I've been a Women Tech Makers recipient but this was back in 2013. Now I'm involved in many other projects. Right now, I'm a public relations officer for Women in Research Ireland, and they are a very active community of women researchers whose basic job is advocacy to have more women in academia and in research. So we have every month we have around 2 to 3 events. So if you're interested in some of these events, you can get in touch. And then also Women in Machine Learning and Data Science, the Dublin chapter of it. This is also a group like Women in AI, a worldwide group, but we launched when COVID was right at the peak. So we haven't had any of our events, but soon we will have something. So now the little bit about the talk itself, a little bit about my story. I won't go too much into that because already I'm very much humbled by what Khalid Bhai said. We'll see how AI is a friend of everyone and it's not a monster that everyone thinks. And then I'm going to relate a story of this guy who was an Uber driver and then he became a machine learning engineer. He's now very actively working in AI. So if he can do it, you can do it. That's what my whole motivation behind this particular talk is. And then we'll see about Kaggle competitions and how you can land an AI job in industry or an AI job in academia. So, well, it all began in Karachi to Dejan to Galway to Dublin. So I started my BS in computer science at University of Karachi. I was always a maths enthusiast back in my O-level days as well. So computer science was a very good choice for me. So after scoring the highest GPA in my class, I was all about in the last year, I got interested in research. There was a publication of mine and I just randomly applied to some master programs around the world, of which KAIST was the one professor over there in database and multimedia, who was very impressed. And myself and my husband, we moved to South Korea for our masters in KAIST. KAIST is known as the MIT of Asia, basically. And why is it known as MIT of Asia? And there's also a saying about KAIST that goes, KAIST never sleeps. And that's true. There were days we used to come back after working in our lab at 4 a.m., at 2 a.m. The South Koreans work like 18 hours a day and very intense working hours. That was my life in South Korea, but all worth it at the end, where I am now, alhamdulillah. Those were tough days though, but nothing in life comes easy, as you know. And then I did my PhD in computer science at NUI Galway and University Milano Bicocca. This was a joint PhD program, and it was in personalization. So basically, web search was the area. So I went from database field to multimedia, database and multimedia field to AI. So I'll go in a little bit into my path, how I ended up in AI, how AI has evolved over the years. Right now, I'm doing a postdoc in University College Dublin. A lot of people don't know what's a postdoc. I'll go a bit into that as well. And academia is my first and last love. There have been many chances for me to move to industry. A lot of people are also curious, why don't you go to industry? Why don't you go to industry? Some people think that academics are stupid and they can't work in industry. That's not the case. I'll explain what is the case. Okay, so I wanted to make it a little bit comical. So you see this guy, he was taking photos from a photograph from a helicopter back in 2009. 2019, he's jobless. Why? Because there are drone cameras. Don't be that guy, please, or don't be that girl. Uh, what I mean is, don't be the one who's on the helicopter taking the photos. Upgrade yourself, look for new dimensions in your profession, how you can always upskill, you can always learn new skills. Learning is a lifelong process. So be the one that can program the drone so that you won't end jobless. That's what I'm trying to say here. So a lot of people think that AI, we are just geeks working on the computer all day long, and we don't know about the medicine area or retail or transport or different stuff. That's not true. AI is now everywhere. Uh, if you look at it, it means artificial intelligence. This intelligence is not just limited to making it all about machines or stuff. It's about decision making in different areas. Like Begum gave some example on healthcare, nurse triage systems, and different chatbots for mental health, etc. Likewise, uh, in retail sector, to make your manufacturing system smart, to have the defect detection at uh, very early stages of a manufacturing process, you have AI. You're making your itineraries, giving you the best travel paths for Europe. Let's say you go to a travel company and you say, well, I want to go to 4 countries in Europe. Can you tell me the most economical package? Some travel agents, the good ones, would have an AI system to do that. All I'm trying to say is that AI is creating lots and lots of values in these many industries. Professor Andrew Ng, you might have heard his name if you are a little bit into computer science or if you've ever done any basic machine learning course, because no one has, I haven't seen anyone who has not done machine learning and has not heard of Professor Andrew Ng of Stanford. So he said, I have a hard time thinking of an industry that I don't think AI will have a huge impact on in the next several years. Okay, so then along with the whole value creation stuff, there are some myths and some irrational fears about AI. All that sci-fi that messes up with our head. Um, no, evil robots are not going to take over the world. It's not coming soon. So what is it that we talk about if evil robots are not going to take over the world or machines are not going to do everything for us? AI is divided into 2 branches, artificial narrow intelligence and artificial general intelligence. Now, narrow intelligence is the one where we are working, like in farming, how to improve agriculture processes, how to improve the web search engines, self-driving cars. This is the one where lots and lots of progress is being made. And still we are over here. Artificial general intelligence is the goal, and a very fascinating goal for researchers, but it's still very far and far away. So we need not worry about the aspect of robots taking over and stuff. But ethical AI is, of course, a concern, but that's totally different from the irrational fears that people, especially sci-fi movies, have about AI. And then, what is AI exactly? Like Begum said, there is no one definition. Why is there no one definition? Well, because everyone is free to come up with their own. And because of the vast amount of fields that AI influences, there are lots and lots of definitions going around, and nothing wrong with it. We don't mind. We are not the, patent-minded folks that, okay, this is our definition and you have to use this one. No, it's okay. In fact, it would drive innovation. More the definitions, more the understandings, it would be good for us. But the chief factor is machine learning. That's the whole core of it. So AI is chiefly driven by machine learning. You have, and when we say that it's about what is machine learning? Well, machine learning is essentially something where you go from an input to an output, A to B. Let's say our input is news, and we have to classify whether it's real news or fake news, because fake news is a very popular phenomena these days. And then email. Okay, would this email go in my spam or not? That's an input. You should output the label spam. Uh, we have an ad. We have a user. Which of the ad will translate to a user click? That's AI. That's machine learning. The system doing it is machine learning, a very simple 5 to 6 lines of code in Python. But what goes behind it is lots and lots of data. And all this progress that you've seen in AI in the last 20 or so years is because now we have huge and huge amounts of data. Let's see a small example of data. Yeah, here it is. So we have, let's say, this housing prices data set where you have the size of houses, the number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, and the information about whether it's newly renovated or not. So let's say I want to build a system that I create a mobile app where for those who want to sell a house, and if they input all this information in my app, they can get what should be the market price of their house and what should they put it up on daft for. This system would be an AI system. What I would do is I would input all these values of the size of the house, number of bedrooms, number of bathrooms, and the new whether it's newly renovated or not, and give them an estimate of what the price would be based on the data I would already have. This is called regression problem in machine learning, and it's a very famous classical problem. So what is AI again? Simply put, it's intelligence that machines demonstrate, unlike the natural intelligence that we humans or even animals have. However, intelligence is broad. Intelligence to we know what intelligence is, but it encompasses many different things, many different decisions, like what ads should we give to whom, what treatment to prescribe to whom based on the symptoms. AI can do that. What would the house prices be in the area, in this particular area, let's say in 3 years? That's AI, that's machine learning. So now I'm going to switch over from the basic definitions of AI to how AI has different applications in different areas and how you can benefit. Let's say you're a doctor, like we just heard Brother Khalid Server, who said that lots of doctors are here. I'm pretty sure they have not worked much with computer scientists or AI practitioners. So let's see if I can convince them. The whole idea of today is we can do better research together and better output together. Climate change is a huge problem. Can climatologists solve it on their own? No. Uh, we are I'm working in agriculture, and there is this problem called the food shortage problem, and we might have less food than the world's needs by 2050. So can the food scientists and the food science and nutrition people end this hunger problem on their own? No, they cannot. Can economists abolish property on their own? No, they can't, and they have tried for years. It's not working anymore. That's why interdisciplinary research and interdisciplinary is what is the rage these days. So how can AI help healthcare, for example? You saw one example about Ireland's, waiting list, how that can be solved to some extent. Similarly, the vaccines, the COVID vaccines, when they were being built, some of machine learning was used for the mix, for the trials to mix and match. It's called ensembles. Ensembles are when you mix multiple machine learning algorithms one after another and find out a perfect mix. So that was what done. That this thing was done with the Oxford AstraZeneca and the Pfizer vaccines. So a lot of people don't know that AI systems or machine learning engineers are also behind development of these vaccines. Then, okay, this I will give my own example. There was this workshop by University of Vermont, their network science group and their complex networks group. It was understanding and exploring network epidemiology in the time of coronavirus. So network epidemiology is the science of how this all infections spread and how networks, there is an SIS model, and there are different models in network science that explain how infectious diseases can be stopped and at what point they can go, they can become catastrophic. I've been a huge advocate of sticking to the COVID guidelines after this workshop. Well, not exactly a workshop, it was a whole series. It was an entire 1 month long course followed by a project with different PhD students from USA, from Europe, etc. So I became a great advocate of following the COVID guidelines after this particular course that I took. A lot of people were like, oh, you're not a doctor, what do you know? That's not true. A lot of the people who are modeling the R not, and a lot of the thing that you read in everyday news, that especially if you've heard the name Professor Philip Nolan, he's a computer scientist and he works in AI in Maynooth University, and he's the one who's leading the whole infectious disease modeling thing for Ireland. And he's the one and who's guiding the NPHT efforts, and he's the one who's mainly responsible for how long the lockdown is going to continue. So that's why I know when I'm saying that why you have to stick to guidelines, how long the lockdown will go, why is it important. I read all, you need to know about these infectious disease models, and they're all coming from AI in network science and computer science. So again, interdisciplinary, that the doctors alone cannot predict all of this stuff. This is a modeling effort, and a lot of it has been borrowed from physics and maths. Now, how has AI changed business and finance? Well, you all know about mortgages. Here in Ireland, everyone has tried to buy a house, and everyone must have gone through the heartbreak of your mortgage application being denied. Well, chances are a machine denied your loan application, because that's very much the in thing these days. You feed a machine with your different data, like your age, your income, how much you have in your savings amount, your credit, well, what you want your credit duration to be, and other things like your salaries, your children, your weight, even your BMI, because they don't want you to die without paying off their interest and paying off their loans. So all of this is fed into a very simple logistic regression or any other model. In fact, there's a whole startup around this business model of automating mortgage approvals for businesses, especially for KBC. It's called Logic, and they earned 1.5 million euros in funding just last year at the start of the pandemic. So this is something that the business and finance industry has to keep an eye on, because a lot of the stuff in the business area is going to be dependent on machine learning. Now there's a whole field around it called fintech, fin for finance and tech for technology. So finance and technology, how technology can drive your financial decisions. And these days I'm teaching the machine learning and AI course to finance students. So the business people must be on their feet, and they must really get to know about the AI stuff and how AI has changed marketing. This is another example. Sometimes you get these vouchers, or some schemes, some sale promotions. How do we, what's the incentive for these companies? Well, there is an incentive. There's something called customer churn. Like you see the red guy here, he's about to leave whatever service he's on or whatever company he's using. So the marketing guys get an alert, oh no, we're in trouble. And how do they get it? Well, they see some behavioral patterns. They can see the clicks, they can see the number of hours the users have been spending on a site, and now they're not. So based on all this data that can be fed into machine learning algorithm, they can make the predictions beforehand, these marketing people. And now sales and marketing is not just going door to door and selling your product. It doesn't work that way anymore. You have to have all this data about the customers, online buying, online web browsing patterns, and what they're watching, what they're not, whether they'll be interested any longer in your products or not. What are they into these days? And then you make your marketing decisions. That's what it has become now. Now, again, the third part of my talk, where well, much about why, how it's influencing different fields. And yeah, you need to learn some of it, but how? That's a big question that everyone asks me. Where to start? Even people who have been in computer science for years and years, or have been working in different areas, let's say databases, or let's say high performance computing, or any other different area, they're confused how to begin a career in AI and machine learning. So my advice for first and foremost is learning anything, especially in programming, in computer science, is like learning how to fly. You've seen a bird, mom bird teaching the baby bird how to fly. She just says, go, go, leave my nest, and the bird learns on its own. So this is the best way to teach. Just do it uh, by trial and error, you learn. So back in undergrad days in Karachi, we had this teacher of Introduction to Computer Science. I did not have any background. I didn't take computer science in my O-level days. I had maths and pure maths as my subject. So I didn't know programming, but this guy asked us to write our first program on the very first day. At that time, I thought, well, what a horrible teaching methodology. But now I think it was pretty amazing. And I still think so. Well, I don't do that to my students, but I give them lots and lots of coding exercises and lots of programming assignments. And that's essentially what you are supposed to do too. Just dig straight into Python courses. There are many platforms where you can learn: Coursera, Udemy, edX, DataCamp, DataQuest, LinkedIn Learning. Some of these are free. Well, I know the first question Pakistanis would ask is, are they free? Well, a lot of them are free, but please don't go after free all the time, because there is no free lunch. And investing in education is going to pay off a lot better than what you would invest in a house or any other thing for that matter. Trust me when I say that. Let's say you have a house in a village and you inherit it from your parents. That house is valuable, of course, but then you decide to sell that house and get an education. And due to that education, you land a job in Europe. So what's more worth it? The money that you invested in your education or that house? You know where I'm getting, right? So even if it's not free, there's no harm in investing a little bit on learning. Till this day, I invest in myself. I'm enrolled in different courses because there's always anything to learn. Even after a PhD, I feel, oh, I don't know this stuff. I need to learn it. So once you have that thinking that I've learned everything, you stop growing. Personal growth stops, and that's the end of your career. Okay, another thing, networking, which the Pakistani community is not so good at, I'm sorry to say. We are all about hiding stuff from each other or not going out of our comfort zones, or but networking is something I have seen Europeans network like crazy, especially in conferences, even Indians. And that's the way when we talk about how a nation can rise, by supporting each other, by leading each other to each other's success, not by hiding stuff, not by keeping in our own zones. Whatever you have out there for teaching others, give it out, put it knowledge is knowledge is gold. And even in our religion, it's very valuable to give out knowledge. It's something that is of high prestige. So that's why I do these outreach stuff and all. That's why I agreed for this talk in the first place, because even though I have a very busy schedule, but still, it's important. So get out of your comfort zone, and if you want to learn AI, get in touch with the people who are working with them. Well, it's if it's not easy for you right away, if it's not, you're not a very talkative person or not an extrovert, go out there on Twitter, go out there on LinkedIn, go out there on Quora, find Facebook. Even there are Facebook groups for natural language processing, AI, machine learning, data science. Go and find these people. They are very helpful. And then finally, when you've done some programming, when you've talked to some people, now will come the part you'll be about, oh, I need to solve some real world challenges. Okay, I've done some programming exercises, but is that it? How do I go about solving a real world problem? Something that would give me an edge over others, something that would, well, in which I would have real fun. Like I'm having fun solving the problem of farmers about what are the optimal conditions for them to put fertilizers, where the fertilizer would not go to waste for the environment, and also save their costs and have the maximum crop yield. This is the problem we are trying to solve here at Consus. Seemingly, it's a simple problem, but it has lots and lots of challenges about to study the soil conditions. So we have lots of soil data, we have climate data, we have fertilizer data. So it's something, we're not just in it for the money. Academicians or even those who are in AI, they love the challenge of solving a problem. And our problems are now mostly real world problems. So go out on Kaggle, go out and see different data challenges, you'll find loads. And they're also giving out money. So you'll have fun and you'll have a bit of a challenge to try to get to the top. And here's what Kaggle is. Kaggle is, I'm sure a lot of you must know about it. It's a community of data scientists and machine learning practitioners. And well, now they also have courses, and they have these machines also, where you can rent the machines and run your own notebooks and stuff. Because the problem with machine learning is you need lots and lots of resources. You need GPUs, which are uh, graphic processing units, and they cost a lot. So, and you cannot place them in homes because you need special cooling equipment for them. So what many companies are doing is they are renting, like Amazon has this Amazon EC instances, Azure, Microsoft offers these Azure services. There are many, many others, like Kaggle is also offering this now. So rent it out, they charge hourly. It's not too high, like €5 an hour or something. Do some machine learning on these machines and then shut them down. You'll be only charged for the time that you work on them, and try to get some, you know, like this leaf disease classification problem. This was a problem for Africa. Cassava is a crop that is grown in a large chunk in cassava by smallholder farms because it doesn't cost a lot. But the problem is it gets some disease every year, and this Kaggle gave out this, this challenge to the whole data science community to try to predict it beforehand based on the image of a leaf, and so that the farmer can take some steps early in the early life cycle of that plant growth. So this was a very interesting challenge. Last year, even for the vaccine, there was one particular protein that degraded very quickly, and this was a huge problem. So uh, if we predicted beforehand and what are the factors behind this degradation, we can maybe solve this problem to an extent. So this was also given out on Kaggle. Right now, they have this Shopee price match. So you get an image, two images of a same product, and you have to tell whether or not it's the same or not, because they look very same. They're by two different companies in Taiwan, and the first price for this particular challenge is right now $30,000. It's open right now, and the deadline is in June somewhere. So I recommend you to check it out if you want to try out something and if you know a little bit of machine learning. And then there are some data challenges that companies like IBM, EY, Facebook. Right now, there's this data challenge by EY called Better Working World Data Challenge. There was huge forest fires last year. We all forgot that because of COVID, but in January, Australia had these huge fires. So uh, there's still a chance that it might happen again. So they're gonna give you images, and you have some challenges to figure out that whether or not this will grow into a very big fire or not. So the challenge is open right now. It'll open on March 24th and it'll go on up to June. So it's a very good opportunity, especially for those who have just done their undergrad or their master's and are looking for some, because the price for this one is, I think, $10,000 along with some mentoring by EY. You can even land up a job, a very nice job, by taking part in these challenges, because you solve something, you put it up on LinkedIn, you put it on uh, Twitter or different stuff. Companies come to you automatically. You don't have to go applying even. Okay. And now about the AI. I mentioned about industry that there is a misconception that academicians don't want to go to, they cannot go to industry, they don't have it in them. That's not true, uh, in all cases, especially. The thing is that industry doesn't have a lot of challenging problems for us. And what we do in academia is writing our own projects, our own papers, thinking about real world problems of the world that we can solve. So that's why it's not something that appeals to me a lot. A lot of the times, every year Google approaches me, ever since I won that Women Tech Maker Scholarship, that would you like an SRE role in Dublin? But from what I've heard from my colleagues in academia who love to teach, who love to do research, they say that an SRE role is not something I'd love. It's just, taking care of Google systems, doing some day-to-day scripting and stuff. So it's good if someone wants to. I'm not saying it's not that good, but it's a choice you make. But for someone who wants to go in industry, first of all, degree is important, but not that important. Even if you have an undergrad and you do some You learn these technologies in Python. Like I mentioned, all those courses, you do those courses and learn some of the machine learning tools. Those are on the next slide. So you'll get a good job. But your cover letter has to be very amazing, and you have to talk about a lot of technologies. You have to learn those technologies, and you have to be very active on LinkedIn. Now, which are the companies? All the big four in accounting, like PwC, EY, KPMG, Deloitte, they all have the data science division. They need lots of data scientists. Facebook, Facebook in Ireland, unfortunately, doesn't have a lot of AI jobs, but still there are some. Accenture, Novartis, Hawaii. I recently gave an interview for Hawaii. Uh, their recruitment manager was after me for like 2 weeks, and I just said, okay, fine, I'll do it for the fun of it. But I ended up not taking it. But it was a good experience, and I enjoyed it. And then IBM, Hayes, Optum. So first of all, read the job specs very carefully, and if you're an active Kaggler, chances are that you will know most stuff. So that's why I'm saying go on Kaggle, figure out stuff, the stuff you need to know, especially if you're wanting to get a machine learning job. TensorFlow, Keras, scikit-learn, neural nets. Wait. There is this book. Yeah, here. This. Do get this one. It's very important. It's the Bible for the machine learning and AI people. Hands-on machine learning with scikit-learn, Keras, and TensorFlow. It's a very good book, and you learn a lot. By the time you end this book, you'll be a very good machine learning engineer. And also, do not apply to every other role in industry. No, no, no. That's a recipe for disaster. You're not fit for every role. Try to match your profile to the kind of problems you've solved, to the kind of technologies you learn. And also, once you do get to the interview, which I'm sure you will if you follow all the steps about the Kaggle and the data challenges. So you need lots of coding practice, because in the interview itself there is a coding task, and also a session where they'll ask about what the different technologies do and their mathematical, not so mathematical, but their technical details. And also try and try again. Eventually, you will land a job in industry. Academia is the tricky part. For people think it's easier, but it's not. You might get lucky, you might get a PhD position, but once you get into it, it's not that easy to finish. And you will always be wondering why. It's because you need to be uh, full of ideas, full of a sharp brain who thinks constantly about different problems, who just doesn't lie there. It's all about research, about thinking of new problems, new things. So that's why academia is quite challenging. Well, I'm biased. You can ask others. I'm in academia, so of course I'll be biased. But okay, first of all, you narrow down your research interest. What is it you want to go in? AI in medicine, it's specifically called bioinformatics, or natural language processing, or smart manufacturing, as Begum is in smart manufacturing, fintech, AI in agriculture, AI in optimization problems. Study the works within this area and think of a problem to solve, brainstorm some solutions in that, craft a research idea, and then start writing to different professors with your research idea. Prepare your PhD application if you want to go for a PhD, and mostly if you want to be a machine learning researcher or a professor in academia, you will need a PhD. Chances are you will. Masters would not be enough. But if you've done all the previous steps, like writing the research idea and the proposal and everything, chances are your application is already in your hand. Just a few things more you'll need to write, and you will get a PhD position, hopefully. Then after that, this is a common mistake that a lot of people who are already enrolled in PhD are making. They're not doing the networking. They're not thinking about their life after PhD, during the PhD. This is something you have to do. Start getting active a year or 2 years before you have time in your PhD ending, because AI jobs in academia are about networking, and you have to keep an eye on the jobs, on the trends, what's happening. And what is a postdoc? Postdoc is basically a timeout, a temporary, something between a PhD student and a lecturer, where you're still learning new skills, trying to write grants, applying here and there. Because the problem with academia is, in industry, there are a lot of job roles for AI. There are more jobs than there are applicants. But in academia, there are less jobs than there are applicants. For one single lecture application from Ireland alone, there would be 50 applicants, and then from the rest of the EU, 50 more. So for one lecture position, you're talking 100 applications of around. And that's why it's very, very hard to stay in academia in Europe, especially, or in Ireland, UK, etc. It's almost the same in US, but it is what it is. So you win grants, you keep writing papers. That's why my husband and myself, both of us are in academia, and most weekends we are working away, and our friends in industry are like, come on, job is only 9 to 6. Why do you work on weekends? Oh, I can never explain to them. I've given up trying, but that's what it is in academia. And you give talks, you get involved in outreach activities, because a lecturer is all about you're going to create the future generation of these data scientists. So of course, you have to be very good in this stuff. That's what academia is about. If you're passionate about this stuff, then come in academia. Otherwise, industry is your place. Okay, I don't know about the time. I didn't keep track of it. Thank you very much for listening to me. If any questions, you can reach me out on Twitter. Thank you. So now we'll take the questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Arjumand, for another excellent talk on Kickstart Your Career and a few more areas where AI is being applied in the industry. It's really our pleasure, IPPA's pleasure, to host both of you for this talk. So looking at the chat, if anybody has any questions, looks like people are already satisfied with the talk that both of you have given, so we don't have any questions yet.
There's somebody raising the hand. I'm not sure whether they want to ask question or.
Okay, I'll unmute. I think it's Misbah Fatma. So Misbah, you can unmute yourself and ask the question. See you raise your hand. Okay.
So I just asked question from both Dr. Genc and Dr. Younus. Me being a doctor, we are the worst in technology, especially senior doctors. And you mentioned excellent examples of applications. So do you think there's a place, there should be more coordination of doctors and the technology people like yourself to do more good systems? I know administration might be doing, but practically how important the doctors on the floor should be involved in planning those things, what you mentioned.
Yes, there should be. There was this recent project that my husband won for COVID. You know, the SFI Science Foundation Ireland announced this rapid response COVID-19 call, and as a computer scientist, he's developing this search system on top of PubMed publications, COVID-related publications for computer science, your doctors like yourself. And back in the stages when he was writing the proposal, he needed some doctors to interact with. He had a really hard time finding someone who could use his system and point out, some new directions. So yes, that should be the case. Doctors and technologists need to sit together and talk to each other and, share problems with each other and come up with mutual solutions.
I also agree with Arjumand, if I may step in as well. So this actually ties back to what Arjumand was saying, networking. So this is super important. So in my case, for instance, I am working on a couple of projects that are in healthcare. So we are looking at the EEG analysis of the people. So we are closely working with psychiatrists and those types of people. And on another project, for instance, we are looking at how to support the clinical processes by, again, working with doctors. And on another project here, we looked at the nurse rostering problem, and by working with the people from hospital, the doctors themselves. So it's very important for doctors to express the problem to us, because we don't really understand the problems. So you are the experts in the field. So you should be telling us the actual constraints or like the implications of the problem so that we can solve it. I think it's very, very important that you as doctors and also we as computer scientists, we network with each other.
Yeah, I totally agree and couldn't stress anymore, because there are a few good projects started. And other thing which I want to stress from very limited information what I got, they started with the help of doctors, as Dr. Arjumand mentioned, got some data. And then it was mainly run by IT people, probably doctors were not keen to give more time. and that end up in some trouble. Example is this contact tracing for the COVID-19. There were some few things, because as a clinician, we can help you in kind of adjusting during the process. And it should be a teamwork, not to start with. It should be continuous teamwork, in my opinion. I think that's the way forward. Second thing, which I'm surprised, like we don't get exposure. I think you as experts, I just give some kind of little responsibility to you, that you guys should be talking to more, healthcare professionals to tell what is AI and how we can improve and how we can make our life easy and benefit to patient for a better care. And there's so much things can be done, and it will cut our work a lot.
Exactly. I completely agree with you. We need to do the communication better so that you understand how you can help. And also then we wait for you to express us what the problem is so that we can actually solve it.
Right.
I think we are a little bit over the time, but one last thing, very important thing I wanted to ask, that's for our next generation, AI and kids. Is there any work being done in that area? Is any of you aware of that, especially in Ireland, because we are based in Ireland? So from that perspective, or anything that you're doing with the schools, or anyone, any other organization that's involved with schools?
Yeah, you can go first. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. So it's just last week, for instance, we worked with some schools. So in these resource centers that we are part of, like Insight Center, Confirm Center, as Arjumand mentioned before in Ireland, they always have some outreach activities in which we go to the schools and talk to the students about AI, trying to inspire them. So this week is Engineers Week, for instance. So we are online trying to talk to the kids as well. So this is actually an ongoing process for researchers like us that is working in the academia. But other than this, if you're also asking about what AI is available for the kids, there are many startups or maybe a little bit bigger companies in Ireland that focus on how to make kids learn better, like Soapbox from an Irish entrepreneur, for instance, like supporting the kids to learn better by using AI techniques.
Yeah. And I also know about, there is something called Dojo Ireland. They have programming, well, due to COVID, they've stopped, but they're still doing webinars. So yeah, they have the age group from 10 to 18, and they do these different Python workshops. And there are some robotics societies as well. My suggestion, follow the SFI Twitter page, make an account on Twitter, uh, start with SFI, start with HSC, and the different university accounts and their research accounts. You'll automatically end up following a lot of researchers and getting a lot of info. I can do a whole separate session on how Twitter can benefit you, but maybe for another time. But start from there and you'll get to know a lot of resources. And I live in Clonsky, right opposite the Muslim National School in Clonsky. So with Adapt Center, we did this outreach activity, and there was some robots that we have programmed with the class 6 or class 5 students, and they loved it. They asked for their teachers to have this activity again, and we did it twice, whereas the plan was to the outreach of Department of Adapt had only wanted to do it once, but we planned it for a second time because the kids really liked the whole idea of how a simple command that they put is making the robot move left and then right, and then it was great fun. And so there are these small toys, programmable toys. You just write a command and the robots can. So there are different type of organizations that are doing these things.
No, thanks very much, Dr. Arjumand. I think we would like to have you because people have, myself as misconcept that Twitter can be only for like a more social and these kind of things. And if it can be used for more academia and more kind of progression in the career, it will be good to know. And especially for the younger generation who are more smart in using these things.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have already gone 20 minutes over the time, but it was so interesting and we could barely only touch the topics from surface, and we'll definitely have more in future, and we'll invite both Dr. Arjumand and Dr. Begum for our future webinars. It's really pleasure, and thank you everybody for attending our webinar. We'll be posting the recording on our Facebook page as well. So once again, thank you, everybody.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much.